Coming up on Texas Parks and Wildlife.
As a child, I spent countless days running around the Powderhorn. It's an amazing place.
I think campfires are the epitome of a camping experience. They provide character, and you can even cook your meals on them.
You have to use those critical thinking skills to think outside the box because the world's problems are not in a textbook.
Today, we're at the Bat Cave to retrieve data that was collected over a year's time period.
Texas Parks and Wildlife, a television series for all outdoors.
This series is funded in part by a grant from the Wildlife and Sport Fish Restoration Program. Through your purchase of hunting and fishing equipment and motorboat fuels, over $40 million in conservation efforts are funded in Texas each year.
Additional funding provided by Ram Trucks. Guts, glory, Ram.
"150 years ago, this was coastal prairie, rivers and wetlands, birds and wildlife. Today, the landscape has changed, and there is less open green space. But there is still unspoiled beauty on the Texas coast. Near Port O'Connor, between Corpus Christi and Houston, lies the 17,000-acre Powderhorn Ranch.
This is one of the most magical places along the entirety of the Gulf. It really is singularly unique with its expansive coastline along Matagorda Bay and Powderhorn Lake, these amazing wind-sculpted and sprawling live oaks and accompanying gallery forests, extensive native coastal prairie, undisturbed freshwater wetlands. It's a sportsman's paradise and something that every outdoors enthusiast can enjoy.
With a purchase price of almost $38 million, Powderhorn Ranch marks the most money ever raised for a conservation land purchase in Texas. It took a new public-private partnership model to achieve that scale, using mostly restoration funding from the BP oil spill, plus millions more in private donations. The Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation is leading fundraising to buy the property. The National Fish and Wildlife Foundation is providing most of the money through a grant using BP spill settlement dollars. Other partners include the Conservation Fund and the Nature Conservancy of Texas. In years to come, Powderhorn Ranch is expected to become a state park and wildlife management area.
The place is literally teeming with fish and wildlife, and if you like to wade fish or canoe or kayak to chase a tailing redfish or catch a trout or a flounder, the bays and back bayous and marshes are going to be the place for you. If you like to hunt, the game there is just simply extraordinary, from deer to ducks to doves and bobwhite quail. And if you like to bird watch, there's no place finer.
Areas like Powderhorn Ranch are also important for wildlife, for coastal economies that depend on nature tourism, and for wetlands that filter water and buffer storms.
Those rivers and streams that feed into the Gulf of Mexico are part of keeping that system healthy. Powderhorn Ranch has that. The coastal prairies are part of what attracts all of the birds and animals that are native to this part of Texas, including, by the way, whooping cranes. And we recently saw 2 or 3 whooping cranes on this property, which is very exciting.
It's very significant in that you're adding land to an already kind of a checkerboard preservation in the landscape. So if you look at a map, you see the Aransas Wildlife Refuge, you see several big conservation easements. This is a great way to kind of continue to sew the fabric together into an ecosystem scale conservation effort in that part of the coast.
This is the old main house at the Powderhorn. This particularly is the sleeping porch where we all slept as kids.
Wendell Denman Thuss knows Powderhorn firsthand. His family has a long history here. They purchased the ranch in 1936.
As a child, I spent countless days running around the Powderhorn, shooting dove, lots of fishing, a little bit of sailing, lots of exploring. It's quite an amazing place, mainly in its natural diversity, and it's an entirely different place in a rainy year and in a dry year.
In years to come, Powderhorn Ranch will be a place where children yet unborn may spend days outdoors.
Well, 94% of the land in Texas is privately owned, so it's really important that we do provide state parks for the people of Texas to go out and enjoy, to be able to fish and canoe and to hike and to camp and to bike. It's just extremely important that we provide these opportunities.
The project is part of the Texas Parks and Wildlife Foundation's fundraising effort called Keeping It Wild, the Campaign for Texas.
We have something that no other state has, and I feel that we really need to do everything that we can now to build a platform for future generations. And the only way to accomplish that is through private-public partnership and getting more people engaged in the outdoors.
Well, we all want to know that there's some wild things and wild places that are out there for us to enjoy whether we see them or not, and this is absolutely one of them, and there's just a special comfort in knowing that.
Going to a state park means connecting with nature, but it also means that sometimes you leave your modern conveniences behind. Then you have to learn new procedures, especially safety ones. I'd like to impress upon you the importance of campfire safety today. I think campfires are the epitome of a camping experience. They provide warmth, they provide character, and you can even cook your meals on them. But it's always important to be careful around fire. Now, if we're under a burn ban, there are no campfires allowed, even in a fire ring like this one, and sometimes just charcoal fires are allowed. When you're camping in a state park, you want to make sure that your campfire is confined within a fire ring, usually found at your campsite. You can purchase firewood at your park store or bring it in from outside of the park, but you cannot use any kind of ground litter, limbs, or wood from your park. All of that wood on the ground will actually break down and provide fertilizer for our trees and our plants to grow. So it's very important that we leave all of that downed wood where it stands. In order to get your fire started, you can use a paraffin fire starter or just a little bit of paper stuck underneath all of that wood. If you light that, it should go up real nice. Now you always want to make sure that your fire is out at the end of the night and keep your tent far away from the fire. Upwind is preferable so that none of those embers will jump out onto your tent. You always want to make sure that you're purchasing a tent that is fire retardant. Doesn't mean it's fireproof, but it can at least try to stop the spread of a campfire. Sitting around a campfire and camping with your family is one of the best experiences our Texas state parks can offer you. Our park rangers and volunteers are always happy to help you here in our parks, and we would love to see you out here.
These 12 high school students are spending a week at SeaCamp on the campus of Texas A&M University in Galveston.
Okay guys, listen up.
Their class is forensics, solving mysteries through science.
Sergeant Brown mentioned yesterday that it's very important that you know some anatomy when you're working with forensics.
Becky Brimmer is leading the class.
We're dealing with mysteries this week and using the different physical sciences to solve them, whether it be biology or chemistry or physics, because all three of them and all the sciences come into play when you're trying to solve mysteries. And this is molded from a real skull. He died of a bullet wound. You can see it right here.
You can tell from the side too, like the V is like way smoother right here.
Did y'all find anything over here?
It might be a Mongoloid or a Caucasian.
There it is. Is it Caucasian then?
Yes, very good.
Christine Pothos is a high school science teacher who's here to inspire and be inspired.
You have to use those critical thinking skills to think outside the box because the world's problems are not in a textbook.
You do have straws. If you can find the trachea and then blow into it, you might be able to inflate the lungs.
Future careers are always a question to a lot of students. You know, you ask a student what they want to be when they grow up, you know, they have no idea. And this could be something that could inspire them to possibly look into these types of things, because those jobs are the ones that are always in need.
Shot in the light of day in a house filled with people? That's cold-blooded, Horatio.
It's as cold as ice.
It's easy to lose yourself in silly television programs. But what about real mysteries? What about a whodunit that real scientists are grappling with? Here's one. It has to do with fish and why males take on female characteristics.
They were finding male fish with eggs in them. When they first discovered this, really didn't believe it. Enough estrogen-like compounds have been put out that there's effects on the reproduction of fish.
We don't want to have fish populations develop where they're all feminized, because if there's not enough males to fertilize the fish, then we risk decimating a population.
Not too many men would volunteer for that, and I don't guess the fish are volunteering for it either.
Here in the laboratories of the A.E. Wood Fish Hatchery, these scientists are investigating the effects of chemicals like pharmaceuticals, cosmetics, and toiletries. After they're flushed down our sewers, only to resurface in our rivers and lakes.
They started looking at the extent of it, and it opened everybody's eyes. This has nothing to do with a specific location. It has specifically to do with a large population and a stream or water body that a large percentage of the water ends up coming through the wastewater treatment plant that supplies the flow to the river. Wastewater treatment plants are designed to take out nutrients. They are not designed to take out pharmaceuticals, personal care products.
Scientists have known for years that fish are vulnerable to estrogen and the thousands of products that mimic estrogen. But what about other species? Can it affect an entire ecosystem? And if so, how far up the food chain does it go? All these questions have remained a mystery because no one has tried to get the answers. Until now. This machine is measuring trace amounts of compounds known as endocrine disrupting chemicals, which can interfere with the hormonal activities of fish. Now, Pamela Hamlet and her team are working to answer the question of whether these same compounds that cause feminization in fish exist in other species.
We're starting at ground zero because there's not much data on how much of these pharmaceuticals are leaching out, running off, being absorbed.
On the terrestrial side, this is an area where there really hasn't been much study. Nobody's looked at what the implications might be to things like river otters or, great blue herons, organisms that rely on those fish for their food supply.
The project we're doing here is specifically looking at biosolids. Biosolids are the solids from a wastewater treatment plant. For a long time, they've been used as agriculture fertilizer. It's a good source of nitrogen, phosphorus, organic matter for the soil. And we're trying to see if anything is moving up into the food chain, moving out of the soil. We're looking at earthworms and crayfish and snails and beetles to see if at the very bottom of the food chain, we can see any of these compounds moving into them. As a chemist, doing this is about as fun as it gets. Doing something truly interesting that could begin a questioning process towards an answer or determine that maybe we really don't have to worry about this that much. It's okay. but it's a complete mystery.
Your choices are listed because you're looking at the scale type right now. Do you see what I was looking at?
These students, they're going to be the ones who are going to have to deal with all these things that are happening in the world today. 10 to 15 years from now, they're going to be the ones who are going to be in charge, and they're going to have to make the decisions and learn the new tools and use them to solve the new mysteries.
San Antonio has grown immensely over the last 10, 15 years.
By 2030, we're going to be at 3 million or something.
San Antonio is a huge city growing very fast.
We think things are crowded now. Just wait.
As the city of San Antonio grows, it extends into the rolling Texas Hill Country to the north. It's an attractive place to live, work, and shop. But the transformation of this landscape from rural to urban could threaten all residents of this central Texas metropolis.
I would like to see San Antonio grow in other directions because northward is the only direction that threatens our primary source of water. For many years, up until just recently, it was our only source of water.
Rain falling on these hills trickles down through fractured limestone and recharges the Edwards Aquifer. And water from the Edwards Aquifer keeps San Antonio alive.
Growth and urbanization over the Edwards Aquifer recharge zone is no guarantee that the aquifer will be polluted, but it certainly increased the risks, and we are seeing contaminants in the aquifer.
We found the best way to protect the water quality and quantity was simply to purchase land, purchase watersheds.
Less than 20 miles from downtown San Antonio, Government Canyon State Natural Area protects water supplies by simply remaining natural. But this pristine wilderness of more than 8,000 acres was almost lost to urban expansion. A new town of more than 80,000 people was planned to be built in Government Canyon.
I don't think there's another natural area or park in the system that has the history that this one does. A loose coalition of many people with interest in our water system came together and took advantage of some economic issues at the time and put this together for our community.
The real estate bust of the 1980s halted development plans, but created an opportunity for a citizens group with a different vision for the future of this land.
A group of 45 different organizations formulated what is called the Government Canyon Coalition. And the Government Canyon Coalition had identified that this was a special space that needed to be protected in order to protect a massive watershed.
The partners purchased the initial 4,700-acre tract in 1993. Government Canyon State Natural Area was born.
Government Canyon is right here. It's just a great partnership because you have different expertise coming to the tables. No one person has all the answers. Limestone tends to be permeable, but not. And you also have different money coming to the table to make research possible, to make management better and more effective, and also to buy some of the surrounding lands.
You want all this stuff in there?
Among those lending their expertise to Government Canyon is a cave survey team gathering data.
Today we're at the Bat Cave to retrieve data that was collected over a year's time period. We've been recording a relative humidity and temperature data every 3 hours for the past year. We're going to download the data into this little device and then take it back and put it in the main computer. We have a large bat colony here, as well as some endangered karst invertebrates. And by getting the information throughout several years, we'd be able to better manage the cave for those animals and then just the cave in general.
Some were installed up in the ceiling, close to where the bats are roosting, to really get some good data on the habitat in the cave, the environment in the cave.
You got them?
Yeah.
Okay.
In order to manage any piece of property, you really have to understand what your resources are.
At Government Canyon, the resources are historical as well as biological. Even the name appears rooted in area history.
As far as we know, it's called Government Canyon because it provided the Army with a pathway to the outposts west and northwest of here.
Footprints of the earliest inhabitants can still be seen here, but the area's history and biodiversity can only be protected if known and understood. Research is critical to preserving Government Canyon.
The things that we're serving for are amphibians and reptiles.
Herpetologist Kerry Guffey checks his traps, never sure just what he'll uncover.
All right, this is a Texas patch nose. Calm down and grab her so I can measure her. They're biters. They like to grab you when they can. Megan, you want to come and help me measure?
Animals caught are recorded and released, building a valuable foundation of data about what lives here before the natural area is open.
There she goes. Once the park opens to visitors, we'll be able to see what impact, if any, visitors have on these particular animals. Get this frog out of here.
The studies continue, but science has already shaped a master plan which keeps all park development low impact, including over 40 miles of trails.
Most of the trails in the natural area are following old ranch roads. Some of those roads were completely overgrown. We're trimming back branches and cutting prickly pear cactus out of the pathway.
That's a grandfather cactus, all right.
What we're working on today is the multi-use equestrian trail, so there'll be hiking, biking, and equestrian activities on this. Trail work days would not happen if it weren't for our volunteer workforce. Thank you very much for coming out. Our pleasure. It's one of the regular activities that's been going on for years where people can come out and get their hands dirty. Fine work.
Even before opening day, the educational mission of Government Canyon is being fulfilled.
We brought 15 girls from the Martinez Street Women's Center, and we're camping. Most of these girls have never camped before, so it's a totally new experience for all of them. Having this experience that so many people never get to have, inner city kids or not, is a gift.
It looks like the moon with a man sitting on it. Yeah, the man sitting on the moon.
Over just one weekend at Government Canyon, the natural world has made a few new friends.
We went walking to the woods to go see how nature was like, and we took pictures of different things.
They had asked us if the nature could talk, what would they say, and I put, you could see me and adventure me, just don't mess me up.
Keep your eyes open, keep your ears open, keep your mouth closed.
Because of a unique conservation partnership, Government Canyon will always be a place where people find adventure and where nature will be safe.
For future generations, we just need something that's natural in this world.
And for the future of a growing San Antonio, this natural area could not be more important.
Even if a member of the community doesn't access the property for recreational reasons or education, they still reap the benefits of having Government Canyon in their own backyard to provide water quality protection.
We talk about the science, we talk about the water. The one thing that always seems to get overlooked is getting off the concrete and having reflective, soulful time is just an incredible jewel for San Antonio.
Terry. As long as Jim doesn't get in here, we'll
Yeah, hurry up, Jim's coming.
We need to stand over here with a fire extinguisher.
What you got going there?
Yard bird.
Yes, sir. Free range yard birds.
Yeah.
Hormone free.
Caught this morning.
Yeah, let's go ahead. Let's go ahead.
Oh, man.
Watch this hole back here.
Yeah, we're done.
I got two of them here if I can get them separated.
What do you think?
I think it's going to be all right.
Yard bird.
This series is funded in part by a grant from the Wildlife and Sport Fish Restoration Program. Through your purchase of hunting and fishing equipment and motorboat fuels, over $40 million in conservation efforts are funded in Texas each year.
Additional funding provided by Ram Trucks. Guts, glory, Ram.